Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cryptid Creator Corner. I'm Byron O'Neill, your host for our Comics Creator Chat. Today, I'm joined by one of the most prolific writers in the game. He's an Eisner and Ringo Award winner, having written some of the biggest superhero properties you know and love: Iron Man, Superman, G.I. Joe, The Flash, Green Arrow, and creator owned hits like Nailbiter, which was the book that got me actually personally back into comics after a significant time away. All that's great, but the reason I'm excited is I get to talk to him about one of my favorite things, werewolves. He's got a 4-issue
Yeah.
series building on Skybound's Universal Monsters line called Blood of the Wolfman with former Rose collaborative partner Leo Max. It's my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Joshua Williamson. Joshua, are you ready to talk about werewolves?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, dude, I love werewolves. That's part of why I'm doing this book. So I was really curious to your take on werewolves, considering all this.
Yeah. Well, personally, my own interest here. Regular listeners will know about my affection for our most famous of lycanthropes. Somebody with
Mhm.
lupus that coincidentally shares the species moniker with the canines. Wilder
Yeah.
forefather, and is somebody whose body can get hijacked by a disease that will spiral out of control at any time. I have an affinity for werewolf narratives, and I think I saw Jonathan Landis's American Werewolf in London at
Oh,
far too young age. I was like 7 years old. So what's your history with the creature? What's the background here?
well, let me ask you this first. What's your favorite movie then? Which one's your favorite of the werewolf movies? Is it American Werewolf or is it something else?
Actually, I really like ginger snaps. That's
Oh,
kind of
that's
my
wild.
favorite.
I have only seen a little bit of the first one. I haven't seen like all of them because there's like three of them or something like that, right? There's more than one, right?
I think so. I've only
I
seen the
think
first one
so.
though. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, that's fascinating. Oh, okay, right on. I wasn't sure if you had like a more like you were saying, like was it American Werewolf or what are your thoughts on Wolf?
On the movie Wolf, I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. It wasn't a home run for me, if I'm gonna be honest. Like I out
Mhm.
of the recent stuff, Benicio del Toro's take I thought was pretty solid, and
Mhm.
I really, really dug that. Yeah, out of the more recent stuff, I'd have to say that that'd be more my favorite.
Is that one? Yeah. God, I'm trying to think of what was my first introduction to like werewolves in general. Uh, I mean, just like cartoons and stuff when you're a kid, I think that just werewolves was something that I always found really interesting. And I did see American Werewolf when I was a kid as well, like probably way too young, and saw
Yeah.
Howling, like, but even watching, I think it's funny. I think the thing that actually taught me some of the mythology of werewolves was probably Monster Squad. Like, I feel
Okay.
like Monster Squad is probably where some of that, I definitely saw that when I was a little kid. Um, and, uh, and then I saw Wolf, and I think Wolf is fascinating to me because Wolf is not a Universal movie. Like,
Yep.
it is not a Wolfman movie. It is a werewolf movie, but it's odd where I think it has a few light touches to kinda connect things a little bit. Um, but then, yeah, I saw Wolfman when I was a kid, like the original black and white one. And it's funny, like, and I tried this bit recently where it was like I saw the original and then I saw some of the ones were after that, and some of the I'll say funnier ones, because they all kind
Sure.
of get funny. Wow. But rewatching that movie once I knew I was gonna do this, like, once it was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna do this." 'Cause I had the same thing. I thought the idea of being a werewolf, all that stuff seemed so cool when I was a kid, like, the idea of transforming into something when a full moon hit, like, all that stuff was really in my head, and one of my, kids actually, this gets a bit into the thoughts are one of my kids actually one time on a weekend was like, I'm a werewolf." And I was like, it's not even it wasn't even a full moon, but they were adamant they were a werewolf. But then by the time we got to the Sunday, they were mad because I was like, you kind of play along a little bit, and by Sunday, they were kind of upset that my wife had like really played along because they were like, I'm not a werewolf. By the time we got to Sunday, uh, like it was a weekend of them pretending to be a werewolf and then upset they weren't actually a werewolf. And that was actually what triggered some of the plot of this, no, and
Okay.
we can get into that a little bit, like what motivated the actual story of this, because there's actually a couple things that were in the news that really motivated it. My take
Okay.
on it. But yeah, even back in the 80s and early 90s, I just thought werewolves were cool. Like anytime there was a werewolf movie or a werewolf comic, like I always thought they were really interesting. It was funny because when Kirkman did his Astonishing Wolfman comic. you know?
Yeah.
I was a really big fan of that one. Like that one, I freaking love that comic. But anytime there was anything with werewolves in it, and I actually, when I was doing Birthright, with Andre Brisson, he also loves werewolves. Werewolves is like his favorite horror thing.
Yeah.
I added werewolves to Birthright because Andre just really loves werewolves, and I was like, I can add a werewolf to this. I can.
Why
There's
not?
totally a way to add it. Yeah, and I ended up adding a werewolf as like a major plot point of the book that was not there originally in the outline. Like we had a 50 issue plan, and werewolves were not part of it until like around issue 30. That was because Andre and I just really love werewolves, and he was like, "We find a place for a werewolf." And I was like, "Hell yeah, we can find a place for a werewolf." And we changed a couple things around, but yeah, I've just always really found, it's interesting because it's like I think as a kid, the idea of, and this comes up in the book a little bit too, the idea of like, unleashing your inner beast, and there's some kind of there is a freedom to it, right?
Sure.
Now as an adult, I do look at being a werewolf a bit more because I could be a bit of a control freak, and that's like the
Okay.
opposite of werewolves. You have to not be a control freak. I think
Right.
it's interesting because it's like, and then this also goes into the book a bit because the dad is clearly a control freak. But the idea that like if you're a control freak, the worst thing is to not have control, And I think that's something that when you're working on horror books, you have to look at things that are things that actually scare you. And I think as I've gotten older, the more I've thought about the idea of not being able to control myself or not being able to control. Yeah, what I mean by that is like as you're getting older, there are certain parts like even your cognitive functions change. So it's like all these elements sort of just went into my thoughts on werewolves. I don't know. Sorry, that's a long answer to an easy question. So
No,
uh
no, it's all good. Like, because we have that group of creatures, if you will, from the Universal Monsters group. You have
mhm,
Dracula, who's kind of the aura farmer. Frankenstein is the tragedy merchant. Creature
yeah,
tells you to touch grass, and then the Invisible Man is kind of like the chaos goblin of the group.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I mean, characteristically, there's the out of control nature of it, that sort of thing, man versus beast. But like more recently, a lot of werewolf stories are about being a victim. So kind of where did you want to go with this?
I think I do land at that. So what ended up motivating me, and I don't know if I would call him a victim in this story necessarily. It's tough. It's difficult. I mean, he is the victim. I mean, I do believe that it's sort of complicated, and I think have you read issue one?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so right?
Yep.
Like, it's difficult because I was really inspired. I feel like inspired is the wrong word, but it's like when you're working on something involving horror, you have to think of something that's timely. You have to think of something that's personal. You have to be grounded. You can't always be supernatural. I think when you get too supernatural, you lose it. Where's the humanity in that story, right?
Sure.
And that's always the best things of horror is when you're actually talking about something involving actual humanity. You're just putting that supernatural lens on it. And with this, I was really inspired by the idea of, we've seen this a lot in the news where people are committing awful crimes and then their families are finding ways to bury it. They're finding ways to hide it. And so I was really thinking about that a lot of what do you do as a parent if you find out your kid has done something bad, right? And what do you do about it? And the trick with this one's a little different because it's like obviously Adam did something bad, but he didn't have control when he did it. And there's all kinds of stuff you can look at where and you'll see as the story goes and why it's called Blood of the Wolfman and what are the connective tissue to the original movie. But the idea that it's funny, you have to question, was he responsible? He is ultimately responsible. He did kill them, right? He
Sure.
did. But there's there are factors involved. And those factors build to they do create a conversation of is he the victim as well in this story because of what you're gonna learn over the course of the 4 issues, right? That like, was he predestined to do this? Was his family's lies they're lying now, and were the lies before were ultimately led to this happening. It's about, his father is buried and done as their family has done bad things, and the father has a history of burying it, right? Did them burying the truth about the past and then all these other elements, is that what led to Adam, killing these people? Is he the victim then? Like, I think there is a bit of a conversation about that, and that is something we do talk about over the course of the 4 issues.
Well, I'm really curious about developing Adam as a character because this was a different
Mhm.
lens than I've seen before in a werewolf story. Maybe I'm giving a little bit away, but as an artist, because I immediately went to Joyce's The Portrait of the Artist of the Young Man and started seeing these comparisons with the coming of age stories focused on a metamorphosis, maybe I'm
Yeah.
reading too much into it.
No, you're
But
not.
what did you okay, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
no, you're not. I
elaborate
mean,
on
I
that
do
then.
think about that. No, I do think about that, that it is like this coming of age thing. I mean, that's what, it's funny because, like, how do I put this? Werewolf stories can have many different avenues to take, and you could take that. I
Sure.
mean, you look at something, like Teen Wolf, it's like, well, now it's a metaphor for, puberty, and it's a metaphor for, your body going through changes, and then, it's a metaphor for, like, this kid is away from home for the first time, and he's at college for the first time, he's away from his family, and life is weird, and he might not be who he thought he was. Like, there's those elements of it. I did want to explore that stuff, and with this book and all books I work on, it's all about finding the character's voice, and, like, once I can't write it if I can't hear them, and that was the big thing with this, was I had to hear Adam's voice, but to hear their voices, and this is part of why the book is the way it is. Like, you'll see when we do issue 2. One of my process, I guess, is there's this phrase, but I basically put them on the couch. So it's
Okay.
like you get Adam on a couch, and then you play therapist, and you literally ask, like, "How are you doing?" And you let
Okay.
them talk, right? Now, I've heard this story from people, like, I think even Bendis used to do this, where he would write conversations between characters just to get the rhythm, get the
Yeah.
voices, and then those scripts would never come out. It was just get the rhythm, just get the rhythm. And, that's what this was too. It was like I had to hear Adam and I had to hear Adam first, and then I had to hear his dad, and then hear them talking to each other, and then I was able to write. If I can't hear them talking, I can't write, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what it was like with Adam, was just getting Adam on the couch and being like, "How are you? How are you feeling?" And you don't even worry about the supernatural parts of it. You just ask the character how they're doing. "How are you feeling?" And that's was sort of my process with him, and getting into his head and kinda what he's going through without all the supernatural elements. It's just like, this is a kid who's, uh bad things have happened in his past, which we've already sort of alluded to in the first issue. Like, it's already said they've had a lot of tragedy in their past, right? In
Yeah.
issue 2 and 3, you get to really see what that tragedy is. I mean, you can kind of guess as you're going through, like, he obviously had a mom who's gone, he had a brother who's gone. That's pretty much set up in the first issue. Um, but yeah, I was like hearing him talk about those things and sort of building out the idea of him going through this change. Like, he's going through, a stage of life that is a lot of ways a lot about change, like going to college and everything. Like, all these things kinda
Yeah.
went into him and his character. Yeah.
Yeah, it resonated a lot with me because my son is actually leaving for college this fall, and this whole it's not abandonment, obviously, but you have your whole world is revolves around your kids for so long, and then you have to get to this point where you're like, maybe they don't really need me anymore, and it's a challenging time, I will say,
Yeah.
and so that relationship, I guess, with Adam and his dad, connected with me, and you're no stranger to playing around with legacy in your work. Flash was
Yeah.
characterized by examining a cycle of inherited burdens, and then Birthright is about one person's trauma shattering a whole family tree. So
Yeah.
why family trauma at the heart of this when the original film wasn't really about family trauma?
Or was it?
Okay.
Because remember, that original film is, like, literally his brother dies, and he goes
Right.
home, and he hasn't spoken to his
Yep.
father in a long time. I mean, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of that so here's the thing with that movie. That movie is fascinating because you know, I think it's ahead of its time in a lot of ways, because it's like, it's also sort of this weird, it's not a murder mystery because he did it, but, which is similar here. It's like he does something bad, and then it causes, but what's funny about that movie is, it's like, yes, there's the concerns of the murder and stuff like that, but it's also the idea that, like, oh, he might have had an affair with an engaged woman, and that's the thing that ostracizes them, right? Like, there is, and then the fact that, I do think that movie is a bit about that movie is interesting because it is a bit about family trauma. It is about coming home, you know?
Yeah.
It's
For sure
like the
that.
fact comes home, and it's like, but he's also sort of a jerk. It's funny, he's not like a good dude. Like, watching that movie again, it's weird, you watch something for fun, and then when you have to watch it for work, it definitely triggers everything in your brain. You will catch things you did not catch before. And it's funny with that movie because it's like he is aggressively a jerk without getting too deep into it. He is a jerk through course of that movie, and so it is like this tragedy, but when you watch it now, I would not call him a hero at all. Like,
No.
it's yeah, at all. So it's an interesting. I don't know, it's a really interesting, thing with that movie, but yeah, I think all of my work is ultimately about family in some form or another, and about relationships between people, like, it's just you can see it, you know? I think
Yeah.
even Nailbiter is less about family, but there's the family element because of Alice and Crane and Warren, like, there's definitely family pieces involved in it, but it wasn't really about that. Um, Birthright's about that, Ghosted was not about that at all, but, Dark Ride is very much about family. It's almost like a
Yeah.
dark twist on Birthright, like, it's very much about family. All my work,
Sure.
I think it's because that's something I can find my voice in, but also it's, ultimately, I want my work to be relatable. You want it to be grounded, and you want people to find their way through it, and the best way to find their way through it is these elements people have in common, and I think most people have, family in common. It's like we all have family stories. I'm not gonna say we all have family trauma, but we all have family stories, you know?
Sure.
And I think that's a way of making stories relatable, and it's just I don't know, I definitely gravitate toward it. It's something I enjoy writing about are those relationships. You know, my writing style definitely changed a little bit once I had the kids. I think once I had the kids, it became very focused on those ideas because I started thinking about family in a different way, my own past, my family and stuff. Like, it's like you're saying, I have a lot of friends right now who are going through a similar thing where their kids are either just gone to college or on their way. Like I have two close friends who their sons went to college this last fall, and it's interesting. Like everyone's reacting to it differently. Like I know people who are like, I have one friend who works in comics, I'm not gonna say who they are, who is one of the more like jokey, cold people. I think not cold. Cold is the wrong word. They are not a person I've ever could imagine being upset. Like I don't really see them get upset very often. And when they were talking about their son going away to school, they were talking about how upset they were about it. It was like it was very human, but it was surprising because I never seen them act like that before. But that's what it does to you. I mean, I'm sure you've had a similar thing now where it's like it does things to you that you are surprised by, you know? The
Oh, yeah.
idea of that and what that does to you. And I think it's fascinating. I was already writing this, so it didn't really impact it too much. And obviously, Henry is not like I will say this. Ultimately, all the dads that I've seen have this experience. They're all good dads because they're just sad their kid isn't around. Is really what it comes down to, right? Like it's just they I think it's a lot of time with my kids. Like I see my kids every day. I talk to them every day, and it's like to suddenly not have that person who's like a piece of you around all the time, I imagine is incredibly difficult. Like I have no idea what that's gonna be like for myself. I'm sure I'm gonna have some weird reaction to it at some point. But with Henry's reaction, because Henry is ultimately a selfish, controlling person, his reaction is not even, it's not the, it's, he's worried about his son being gone because it's another piece of his life that he can't control. He
Yeah.
wants to control everything. He wants to control his wife. He wants to control his kids. He wants to control his business. He wants to control everything around him. And now all those things have gone, right? Like his wife and his older son are gone. His business is failing. And now this one last piece he thinks he can control, which is Adam, is also gone. And now he's like, well, maybe this is an opportunity for me to have control again. And that's what he really sees Adam as in this story too, is that. So it's a different twist, I think, on like how you and I would react, because we're not awful like Henry is. Spoilers, Henry's a pretty bad person. Like we're gonna show, you know? Um, I mean he's a bad dad. I also put he's a bad dad. But yeah, anyway, sorry.
No, I mean, werewolves are rarely the hero of the story, so, it's not
No.
surprising.
Yeah, I wonder if there's an opportunity for a cool werewolf thing. I mean, I don't know. I think the story is gonna end. It, like all werewolf stories end. I think they end in fucking tragedy. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of any time I've seen a werewolf story. It did not end in like, oh, that's a bummer. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, American Werewolf in London ends that way. You know.
for sure. Yeah.
And then even like we were saying before, Monster Squad, they all end like that. Even I mean, Wolf is probably my favorite werewolf movie. That's why I brought it up.
Okay.
I was curious what your take on it is. Even though somebody pointed out to me recently that it's a superhero movie, I did not see it that way until they said it, and then I was like, oh my god, you're totally right. That's a superhero movie. But
I need to revisit that. Yeah, I've not thought of it
well,
that
because
way.
even, James Spader's character ends up becoming his opposite, right? Like, he becomes a werewolf, but is, like, evil with it, and that's ultimately, like, every freaking superhero movie. It's Iron Man, it's like,
Okay.
oh, his dad,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, becomes the Ironmonger, and you know what I mean? It's like, these things where the villain suddenly takes on the attributes of the hero, but then takes it to the evil version.
Yeah.
That's basically what happens in Wolf, you know? So, anyway.
Yeah. Well, was there any particular significance to it being set in the 1970s aside from you don't have to deal with modern technology?
Did somebody tell you that was the joke? That was part of it? Because that was
No,
part of
I've just I've talked to many a comics writer who's like, "Yeah, I'm just setting stuff in the past because I don't have to deal with cell phones, I don't have to deal with Instagram, blah blah."
Yeah, no, that was definitely part of it. I'm not gonna lie, it was definitely part of it. I think that there is a ton this sounds silly, there is a legitimate timeline reason when you get into the 3rd or 4th issue, you're gonna start it's funny, like, when you as you're reading, you're gonna start realizing how connected it is to the original movie, and you're
Okay.
gonna start seeing that it is a sequel to the original movie. And there's a reason why it's called Blood of the Wolfman, not just because it's super bloody. There's another reason, but as you go, and then that timeline, once you start seeing how the timeline falls, you're gonna say, "Oh, that's why it had to be the '70s." Like, there's, like, actual logistical timeline reasons why these
Okay.
things happened in the '70s. And then it was, so there was an actual timeline reason you'll see as it progresses. Then it was I felt as though that would really work best with Leo Max because Leo Max's art, I think, lends itself in that direction anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and he is somebody, I did Rogues with him. I really like working with him then. I wanted to continue working with him. And so it was this thing of like, you know, yeah, it was all these factors. It was like no cell phones, the technology being gone was really helpful. I didn't want to write a scene where instead of them going into an old, when they go to the specialists and they go to the old, they go to the old supernatural bookstore. I didn't want to be like, and they're just start searching the internet. It was like I wanted them to go to the bookstore, to look for old books, and then it was like, yeah, no cell phones. Leo Max's art, I think, worked better with the '70s, and then it was I just didn't want to have. Or no, there's a legitimate timeline reason that
Okay.
as you go, you're gonna be like, "Oh, that's where this is coming from. That's the actual thing is happening. That's what the events are leading to." And it'll be kind of part of the mystery until we get to 4, and then in 4, we really establish the timeline. So, yeah, it'll
Okay.
be one of those things I think you are gonna figure it out by the time we get to the end of the 2nd issue. Like, I think you will
Yay.
be like, "Oh, that's happening," but it'll be spelt out by the time we get to the 4th issue.
Okay. So, werewolf fans will get it, the others, you're SOL to issue 4.
Yeah, yeah. If you're what I feel like I'll tell you this. So Skybound accidentally posted a massive spoiler by accident, and I was like, "Oh, that's a huge spoiler. I wonder if everyone's gonna figure it out." And then one person figured it out. I saw, like, the one person was like, "Oh, that means this." And I
Okay.
was like, "Oh," I was like, "Fuck." It's like, "Well, what are you gonna do?"
It's out there in the world, what are you gonna do?
It's out there in the world. Yeah, somebody figured it out. Like, there was a weird like, I should have caught it, somebody should have caught it, but there was, like, a weird spoiler that, like, unlocks everything that got posted, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
Yeah. Well, my only other deep cut question was the family name Jaeger because I'm a fan of Sirius the Jaeger, which I don't know if you're familiar with it, but in the anime, you've got the Jaegers in the story, they're vampire hunters, and the main character is a werewolf, or maybe you're just a fan of Jägermeister. I don't know.
No, no, I was looking for names that were sort of a bit more, Eastern European German, and then I literally
Sure.
was like, family" it's much more basic than that. It was like, they are a family of hunters.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a part of the story is they're a family of hunters, and I was like, "Oh, Jaeger sounds like it." You know what I mean? It was like it worked, and I wanted to rearrange the spelling a little bit, and then we ended up just leaving it as it is.
Cool. Well, Blood of the Wolfman is dropping in late June, so everybody who's tuning in here, make sure to get your pre-orders in. You have a bunch of other stuff hitting shelves as well right now. Anything
Yeah,
else you
it's
specifically want to pitch?
I mean, people, yeah, I hope you, read Superman and Iron Man and G.I. Joe, but, obviously G.I. Joe and our newer stuff we're doing. But, with this one, for somebody who is a fan of the creator own work I've done, if you're a fan of Birthright or Nailbiter, or Ghosted or Darkrai, I do think this kind of fits into that same, like, area for me, where it's
Okay, sure.
not superhero, it's not capes, it's a slower burn, but it's more personal. So yeah, I hope people will really pick this up and enjoy it, and know it's something very, very different from me that I normally put out right now. So I hope
Yeah,
people
it
will
seemed
pick
like
it
it.
up. enjoy it, and definitely pre-order with your comic stores and make sure you pick up those pre-orders.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I always like to wrap things up on a positive note, so we do something I call my shout out. It can be someone who
Yeah.
did something nice for you recently. You want to thank them, or something that inspired you. You just wanted to share, and I'll go first to give you a moment to think about it. Mine is
Yeah.
it looks like I will actually get to attend my son's graduation, which was initially kind of doubtful. Yeah, I react to heat, and I'm on immunosuppressants right now, so crowds are bad. But we found out there are
Yeah.
office windows overlooking the gym where it's gonna be held, so I'm super excited because it looks like I'll be able to go. So,
That is awesome. Yes. Heck yeah. That is rad. All right. I gotta think
yeah.
of it's funny because they do this at my kid's school. They do that they do shout outs. They do that
Okay.
where they do a similar thing. That's funny when you said that. I was like, oh, that's funny. They do that at my kid's school. God, I try think of something recently. That I would wanna shout out to. Well, I'll shout out to Ben Abernathy, who's executive editor at Skybound. He's been helping me with a bunch of stuff this week on some projects and, was a really big help, doing some planning this week. So, shout out to Ben Abernathy, executive editor of, Skybound. He's awesome dude, but he definitely helped me out with some things I needed this week.
But never, ever hurts to shout out your editors. That's always good
Yeah.
policy.
Who's also one of my best friends, so it's a different thing. I can shout out my wife and kids all day because 'cause they're freaking awesome, but I felt like, oh, maybe something that was a bit more work related. I don't know.
You'll be surprised how many well, maybe not, like, how many people do actually thank their editors. So, yeah, yeah.
I mean, they
Well,
they bail me out more than I want to admit, I think. They're patient
nature
with me.
nature of the business. Well, Joshua, thanks for coming on, and it's always a treat to talk about werewolves. I was going to say, if you're a fan of werewolf fiction, a book I would highly recommend is James
Yeah.
Inge. If you've never checked his stuff out, that book is absolutely like fantastic. Yeah,
What is it called?
it's called The Wolf Age.
Okay.
And it's one of those
I'm gonna
rare instances where you move away from more of the loner trope, and it looks at a societal structure for werewolves and what that might look like, and it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. Did you watch that, there was a werewolf movie recently that was, like, big budget action, like, the world transformed to werewolves. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
I think
No,
it
I
was
haven't
literally
seen that one.
called Werewolves. I think it might have been called Wolves. It's on Disney Plus now. I was just curious if you'd seen that one since you're, like, very much, like, love, werewolves. I was tempted to watch it, but it looked a bit more, B movie than I normally would watch, I think. And I actually really like B movies.
Okay.
I'm not gonna be at all. I freaking love B movies, but it was one of those like I wasn't sure, so I was curious about somebody if anyone else had actually seen it, what they thought of it because it was a big like it was it's one of those movies that's like werewolves are taking over the world kind of thing, and
Yeah.
we're like the last people trying to stop werewolves sort of movie, uh,
Sure.
kind of thing. So I was curious if you'd seen it or not. But yeah, I'll check that out. That sounds cool. I like the idea of that more of a when you say it's more like it's not as much of the loner trope, is it because there's, like, a pack, or is it more family?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a whole societal structure. So there's a city that you have werewolves who are essentially protecting the people from this other creature that's sort of on the outside of the city. So it's like the big
Oh,
bad
that's
is
really
not the
interesting.
werewolves, it is this thing that's out here. And, human beings are basically, they're not slaves, but they're second class citizens. So
That's
it's
really interesting, I'll check
interesting to,
that out.
yeah,
Yeah,
I really like James's work.
that sounds really cool. Alright, cool. Alright, yeah, we get into
Yeah.
there. I know I just realized what time it was, and I'm, like, surprised nobody's yelling at me telling me to go to the next interview.
It's all good. All right. Well, this is Byron O'Neill on behalf of all of us at the Comic Book Yeti. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Alright, thank you.
Peace.
Thank you.